You mentioned Friday the 13th. One of those movies was a key experience for you in your sort of the building of the love of horror for yourself. I've had a similar experience where I snuck in to watch Paranormal Activity 2 with my dad when that came out, and I love those movies. Like, they're not for everybody, but that experience was the best horror experience I've ever had in the cinema. What would you rank as maybe your top 5, top 10 horror experiences in a cinema?
Well, the one that I would say is the biggest it's not even in a cinema, and I can't remember if we spoke about it, but one of the things that set me on the path to making horror, aside from my parents being like very devoutly religious and not wanting me to watch it. Right. So like going to a friend's house is where I caught a lot of things because I wasn't allowed to watch it at home. But my best friend and I were in Scouts, and we went to camp one summer, and this was, I think it was 1986. So, and I was born in 77, so I was like 8-9 years old. And we went to this camp, and there were film props and sets there still at this functioning summer camp that we were at. And I learned while we were there that they had just finished shooting a movie there, and some of the things were still there. Well, that movie was Jason Lives. Wow. And that is one of my all-time favorite horror films. And I can make arguments why now that I'm a professional filmmaker, but something about that was so magical because I was also camping there as a child, so I was terrified, and there were counselors running around in hockey masks, like giving a shit. So like that was a profound experience. And in terms of going to the theater, there's just so many. My same friend and I snuck into Halloween 4. And that was profound. I mean, it was surreal. I told Danielle Harris, I told Danny about this experience because her and I are the same age, and she was the lead of that movie. So being that age and sneaking in and seeing that movie and seeing someone my age acting with Michael Myers and performing was huge for me. And I was like, that's all I want to do. So when I was being directed by her in a movie like 20 years later, I was like, hey, Danny, I'm just going to let you know this is crazy, and here's why. Because I've always been a fan first, you know. So those experiences, I still remember I had moved to New York and seeing Jason X, which it's funny, is I'm friends with Farmer, with Todd, the writer of that, but I didn't know him at the time, and seeing a completely packed out audience in New York City, freaking out about Jason in space, and realizing that there's 1,000 people in here and they've all seen the same movies that I have because they're all having the same responses. They're all having the same responses to the callbacks, you know, from New Blood, The Sleeping Bag, and The Tree Death, like all of these specific Easter eggs, and that was profound too. But it doesn't get any different than getting the privilege to make one and have it play at a festival. So remember when we did The Signal and it got into Sundance, and I'd never really played a movie that we had done with an audience before, with a real audience of strangers, I should say. And so being at Sundance and having no idea what the response was going to be was a super profound moment because people kept jumping up early on, and we were concerned. It was like people are already bailing, like they hate the movie. And they were sales agents that were going out and to have discussions about whether or not to try to put an offer in on the film. So it worked out really well for us. So that was a huge experience, getting to go places where you worked on something and having it land, you know, that was really great. That was really cool.
That's awesome. And just on that topic as well, you mentioned that you've had the fortune to work with some people that you've been a fan of when you were younger. Has there been anyone that's come up to you and given you a compliment about one of the films that you're in, one of your performances, where it's been like, wow, this person I know very well, they're a big name, this is crazy?
Do you mean like an audience member?
Just someone in the working in
the film?
Yeah, working in cinema.
Probably not. If they do, they haven't told me about it. I'm usually I'm probably pretty unimpressive on set. I remember when we were doing the guest, I have it going the other direction, like freaking out that I was working with Lance Reddick because I was such a fan of The Wire and Fringe and all of the work that he'd done, and I was on screen with him, and we were doing a walk and talk, and I caused him to fuck his lines up because I was just staring at him, and even though it wasn't my dialogue, I was just kind of looking at him like, holy shit, that's Lance Reddick, he's so handsome. And I guess I was looking at him in a quite peculiar way because he dropped his lines and he's like, this guy's staring at me. So I fanboy out more frequently than other people too.
Is that the biggest fanboy that you've had, or is there?
I mean, I don't know. Hatchet 2 was, it's funny, Hatchet 2 is a very different type of movie than most of the type ones that I make.
Yeah.
But Hatchet 2 for me, someone asked me, I remember someone, I guess they thought I was some sort of like artsy, pretentious art house snob, and I was like, no, I'm not. I mean, some of the work might be, but I'm not. And when Adam Green called me and asked me to come in, I just had a couple of questions. Because when he was talking about me being in it, I was like, is Kane playing Victor Crowley again? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, does he kill me? And he was like, yeah, but it's great. You're going to be having a sex scene and he's going to chop your head off. And I was like, I'm in. And that shoot was crazy for a kid that grew up watching genre, because it has R.A. Mihailoff in it, who played Leatherface. It had Candyman. And it also had people like Tom Holland, who, like watching Fright Night and Child's Play. But also beyond that, like, I already knew who he was because as a kid, Cloak and Dagger was a movie that I love, and he wrote that. And so and like Danny too, like I was just like staring at her being like, I cannot believe that Jamie's over there, she's right there. That was, for me, a crazy experience, because we also got to go to New Orleans for a couple of days. So walking around the French Quarter, Bourbon Street, with all of these people whose movies I grew up watching, and I'm in one with them briefly, but I still, it was great to become friends with Kane Hodder through that experience, and try my best to let him know that, like, I think that he's a profoundly gifted performer. There's a reason that Voorhees got really scary at Part 7. And it's because of Kane's physical embodiment of him, of his acting, without any dialogue. He just played him in a completely innovative, different way that brought so much humanity to that monster that made him really scary in a way that he'd been campy scary before, but then suddenly Jason was sort of terrifying because we could see him breathing, and we hadn't seen that before. So all those guys, like, I flipped out about it.
I'm not surprised. I don't blame you. We've also got the new Halloween film coming out this week, coming up in the UK. I can't wait for that. Is there something that's coming out in the next couple of years that you're nerding out about? Evil Dead for me is another one.
That's going to be a big one. I'm freaking out about Halloween because I got to know some of the Roughhouse guys, like Danny McBride and David Gordon Green. They're friends with Ty, and David had the Nicolas Cage movie Joe playing at Toronto when we had the Sacrament, and we had the same distributors and the same financiers. So when that happens at a film festival, typically you end up spending a lot of time together. You sort of shuttle up there together. And so it was surreal to be hanging out with Nicolas Cage, because outside of horror, Valley Girl, the original Valley Girl, is still one of my all-time favorite movies. And getting to be around that was nuts. And then I heard, like, I was talking to David, and he had never made a horror film, and they came to Jody Hill, and he came to the Sacrament when we were playing in LA, and finding out that they were really into horror. I had no idea at the time that they were going to be eventually making Halloween, but knowing their reverence for it, getting to see someone do Halloween and take it really seriously was really exciting for me, without even having to try to explain Thorn or something else, like without having to figure out how to make the timeline make sense. They're like, fuck it, we're just going to disregard all of that. I am extremely excited to see the new one, because they have reset everything with the first one, and they reset the universe, and plus also right where they left it. I know for a fact that 2 and 3 were spiritually going to be basically one movie, sort of like sorry, it's early, I haven't enough coffee. Avengers,
Infinity War and Endgame.
Infinity War, yeah. So this new one is a bit like Infinity War, and I know that there's going to be an abrupt end to it because of the next one starting. So it's really a giant Halloween film. And so I'm curious to see how much that bums people out, because I know for a fact that it's pretty abruptly like boom, because then we'll all have to wait another year, because those guys aren't letting me into the office to see the movie. So when I get back to America, there's definitely going to be time carved out to not be in Dad Zone this weekend, because it's coming out at the same time there. So it's easy for me to say that one, because for sure. And I recently, with some of the rights to Friday the 13th getting worked out, as somebody who loves that franchise, warts and all, I hope that they can that's a step towards getting to make another one. It's been so long, and I was a really big fan of the reboot one.
Reboot was awesome.
Yeah, I really loved it,
Class.
and it bummed me out that it's been so long since that one, because Derek did such a phenomenal job playing Jason.
Yeah.
Again, made him scary, made him living and fast, and I would love to see Derek get to play Jason again. And I love how they were able to sort of essentially get the plot lines from 1 through 4 in that movie, if you look closely at some of the beats. So I would love to see another one of those. I don't have any word about that getting made, but I just know that for years I've been telling people that, like, I want to make Jason in Snow. That's my... If I blew up...
Sequel, weren't it?
If I blew up and I got super famous and they were like, what do you want to do? I'd be like, I just want to make a Friday the 13th movie.
Yeah.
Just give me $10 million to make a Friday the 13th movie. We'll make a really good one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I would do.
Good stuff. Well, I've had a great time chatting to you as always, AJ, and massive congratulations on what you've achieved on Night Drive as well. Really appreciate your time, man.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.